This one box of corn seed right here cost me $17,000.
What if I told you the American farm, the symbol of hard work, family, and independence, is slowly being taken over, not by droughts or locusts, but by corporations, billionaires, and even foreign governments? Farmers losing land they've owned for generations, seeds that farmers can't legally replant, solar farms replacing cornfields, and food that's starting to feel a little less American. Today, we're pulling the curtain back on the quiet crisis shaping the future of U.S. farming and the food on your plate. Let's get into it.
All of our food here is grown by less than 2% of the population is farmers and ranchers. So you take these corrupt corporations that already, there's like half a dozen or so that control our farm commodities, which is our crops. Then there's 3 corporations that control over 85% of all the meat packing in here. So we already are at this very centralized place here in our food supply. The only thing holding back the floodgates between the American people and skyrocketing food prices. Food is expensive right now. It should not be this expensive. But let me guarantee you, it is not the farmer and rancher making record profits. It's all these corporations that are the puppet masters of our farmer and ranchers and producers. You can get rid of all these families like my family, like all of our neighbors, like thousands of others across this country. You could control the food supply and the food. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the desire of some very powerful people in this country, is to get our food supply down to where it's controlled by half a dozen or so corporations and a few billionaires.
For over a century, American farming was built on one idea: small, family-run operations feeding their communities. But that image, the red barn, the open field, is fading fast. In the 1950s, the U.S. had over 6 million family farms. Today, fewer than 2 million remain. And here's the twist: farms are still producing more food than ever. So how can fewer farms make more food? Because the land is consolidated. By 2025, the top 5% of farms now control over half of all U.S. farmland. What used to be local and personal has become industrial and corporate. And once those small farms go under, they rarely come back.
A Chinese food manufacturer recently bought 300 acres of farmland in South Dakota, but this 300-acre deal in South Dakota has members on both sides of Congress and some other farm states freaking out. Why? It's located about 20 minutes from an Air Force base. National security concerns and potentially puts food security in the hands of a sometimes hostile foreign power. 6 states have already banned foreign investment of farmland, but other states are more open, like Texas. Some members of Congress have seen enough. They've introduced a bill that would block some purchases and bar Chinese-owned farms from federal support programs.
You'd think American farmland belongs to American farmers, but that's not always true anymore.
Foreign countries have been buying land in the U.S. forever. Tell me something new. No, they haven't. No, they haven't. Not quite like this. Let me show you a graph. Just from 2016 to 2023 alone, foreign investors bought over 20 million acres of American farmland. Right now, what is reported, so it's more than this, but what's reported is 46 million acres of U.S. farmland is being held by foreign investors. Here's another graph to show you the steep incline in activity that started happening in the mid-2000s.
According to the USDA, over 40 million acres of U.S. farmland are now owned by foreign investors. That's larger than the entire state of Iowa. China, Saudi Arabia, and Canada are among the biggest buyers, acquiring land that grows our food, controls our water, and influences our supply chains. And while headlines love to blame one country, the bigger picture is this: everyone wants a piece of American soil.
Did you know that Bill Gates is the largest private owner of farmland in the U.S.? He owns 270,000 acres. What does the computer boy want with all that land?
Even domestic billionaires are buying up land, like Bill Gates, now the largest private farmland owner in the U.S. Supporters say it's investment in sustainable agriculture. Critics call it landlord farming. Either way, ownership equals control, and control equals power.
In America, corporations own plants. There are some that you can't grow or even store their seeds without permission. But it's most controversial in farming, where big companies like Monsanto and Bayer sell their patented seeds to farmers, like this soybean here is resistant to pesticides. When you buy these seeds from a company, you sign a contract, and that contract says, I will not replant these seeds next year. I won't even store them. But what happens if you stumble upon seeds that have the genetic material because they're offspring of a patented plant? That's what happened to this farmer in Indiana. He legally bought soybean seeds from an independent farmer and planted them, but they happened to have genetic material from a Monsanto seed, so Monsanto sued him. The farmer's defense was that he can't help what Mother Nature does. Plants produce offspring and they sprout and grow naturally, and it was the soybeans that did it. The case ended up going all the way to the Supreme Court, and they sided with Monsanto unanimously. Justice Kagan delivered the decision that the law views genetics as technology, and if there's a copy made of technology, that copy still belongs to the inventor. And the farmer had to pay Monsanto $84,000.
Now let's talk about the root of the issue, literally, seeds. Once upon a time, farmers saved their seeds every year, planting what worked best, breeding hardier crops naturally. Today, that's almost illegal for many.
The seed companies are essentially bullying farmers into buying their seeds, which is another reason why your food is becoming so expensive. Farmers can be and will be sued if they plant their own seeds. Farmers don't own the rights to the genetics of their own seeds unless they're using heirloom seeds. So in order to have the right to plant these seeds, we have to pay a fee. The seed company can actually come onto your property, check your plant, and if the plant has any trace of their genetics, they sue the farmer. So all that hard work growing the plant, yeah, we don't own it. And the seed companies love to remind us this by saying, we know you bought our seed last year, so if you don't buy seed again from us, we're gonna be auditing you. So my order of 3 totes just came in, enough to plant 300 acres of soybeans, and to have the right to plant them, it cost me over $30,000.
Companies like Monsanto, now Bayer, and Corteva own the patents on genetically modified seeds designed to resist pests, drought, and chemicals. They sell the seed, but they own the genetics, which means farmers can't legally save or replant them. Each year, farmers have to buy new ones, and if their fields accidentally cross-pollinate with patented crops next door, they can be sued for stealing genetics, even if it happened naturally through the wind.
What happened to Monsanto? Never heard nothing about it for the last 10 years or so. The bees would pollinate their fields with the 150-year-old family farm down the road. The farmer would collect his seeds every year, and then they would show up and want to test his seed. They test the farmer's seeds, and they would see traces of their patented seed in there from the bees pollinating it. And then they would sue that farmer into oblivion for stealing their patent. Old school farmers, family farmers, 150-year-old generation farmers, they don't have $1 million for lawfare. They grow corn, especially when they're going up against 1,000 of the best, highest paid, most badass lawyers on planet Earth that work for Monsanto. They just destroy you in court. They probably put millions of farmers out of business like this. It was a huge problem in the 90s and early 2000s. What happened to Monsanto? Eventually, somebody sued the out of Monsanto and won. Yes. Who was that? It was a man by the name RFK Jr., who is an environmental attorney for 40 years. They had to sell the company. Who'd they sell it to? Bayer, a pharmaceutical company, bought Monsanto.
It's like buying an iPhone you can't charge without paying Apple every year, except this one grows your food. That's why heirloom seeds are making a comeback.
Collect them seeds, baby, collect them seeds. I'm about to tell you why in a second, because it's some scary shit. So the higher ups decided that once we buy seeds, we plant them and they grow, no seeds would come out. So we have to go back to them to buy the seeds just to grow some more produce. That means if things go south, we won't be able to grow our own food anymore. We will have to rely on the government in order to get our seeds. That is why it is so important to collect heirloom seeds. And if you don't know, research it, baby, research it.
Real, independent genetics that can be saved, shared, and replanted. But they're harder to find, and they yield less in the short term. Corporate seeds dominate. Over 90% of U.S. corn and soy are GMO.
A recent study by Purdue University uncovered that 88% of farm owners and farmland owners have been approached by solar farms. Approached is a nice word for it. I've heard from people around me who own farmland next to my farm that they have been pressured by solar companies. I have heard from town board members that these solar companies are dispatching people to show up at their doorstep and pressure them to pass favorable legislation to make it easier for them to come in and snatch up 100 acres and set up a solar farm. Imagine what would happen tomorrow if 88% of the land currently being farmed in our country suddenly became a solar farm. Where would our food come from? Where would the hay and corn come from that's used to feed the livestock in our country? People working for these solar companies have told me it's a lot easier to strong arm a small town or village to get what they want passed than it is to go up against a city or a state to put the panels on big box store rooftops or over highways where they belong.
Across the Midwest, solar companies are leasing or buying massive plots of farmland to build solar farms. On paper, it's clean energy. In practice, it's taking fertile soil out of food production. Farmers are torn. Some see it as a stable income, guaranteed rent from solar developers. Others see it as a slow takeover. And with rising input costs, many have no choice. States like Illinois, Ohio, and Kansas are seeing entire counties turning into solar grids, not fields. Environmentalists argue we can do both, grow food and harness sun power. But farmers say solar panels don't feed people. The question is this the future of sustainable farming or the end of it?
This is very precious land to my dad. It was really hard because of all the nonsense that went on, that it could be sold because of all the fights, the family fights over all the land, which is nonsense. I never want that. I'd rather give my place to strangers that love it and care for it than give it to my own blood if they're gonna fight over it.
Here's the heartbreak no one talks about. The average American farmer is 59 years old. Younger generations, they're leaving. High land costs, debt, and corporate competition make starting a farm nearly impossible without inheriting one. Even when families do inherit land, taxes and estates laws make it keeping it brutally expensive. So farms get sold, often to corporations or developers. And once it's gone, it's gone. Rural towns shrink, main streets empty, and the family farm becomes just another photo on the diner wall.
Some of my fields are getting sprayed today, and they are getting sprayed with a drone. So that's new for me. It just makes sense to have these couple fields sprayed with a drone instead of a ground rig or a plane. A lot of times when the field is small or surrounded by tree lines or homes, guys will use drones to apply their herbicides or fungicides. So that's exactly what I'm doing today. This field is less than 20 acres surrounded by tree line and power lines, so I am having these guys spray with a drone. I tested it out on one of my cornfields and one of my bean fields. Pretty cool to watch it all happen. Here he is showing me how it works.
But it's not all doom and gloom. 2025 has brought some incredible new farm tech. For example, John Deere's new 8R tractors can literally see the soil using AI cameras and sensors to scan what the ground needs and automatically adjust fertilizer as they go.
This is the world's largest autonomous tractor. You'll have to look all the way up to the roof to see a line of 16 cameras that provides autonomous capabilities. Pulls out their smartphone and swipes to approve autonomy, and the job gets done while they're doing another high-value task.
Machines that handpick produce with minimal waste are evolving. Drones are even spraying fertilizer or pesticides with pinpoint accuracy, targeting exactly where crops need it most. These tools are giving independent farmers a fighting chance, reducing costs, saving water, and improving yields.
When it comes to self-sustainability, right, and homesteading, they don't want you having goats and shit like that or protection. They don't want you owning your own property, buying the land, you feel me, building your own solar panel systems, and then your high tunnel to grow your own food and your own money. And then they definitely don't want you with skills handy enough to be like building your own little cabin and shit like that. They don't want you having chickens. They don't want you with this type of power, you feel me? This real power.
There's a quiet rebellion happening. A wave of small farms choosing self-sustainability over scale. Local farmers markets, farm-to-table operations, and co-ops are seeing record growth. People want transparency. They want food with a story, and it's working. Small farms are finding ways to make profit by going smaller, not bigger. Social media is helping too. Farmers sharing their stories online, connecting directly with consumers, skipping middlemen. It's not the old way or the corporate way, it's the new family farm. Tech-savvy, local, and proudly independent.
There's going to be less than 1 million farms left in this country in the next 10 years. Then who's going to feed us? Think about it. $24 trillion worth of farmland, farming assets, and barns are going to be for sale over the next 20 years. It was reported in the 2025 Farmers Almanac. So important that you and I buy this farmland as opposed to these conglomerates, these corporations that want to get their fingers in it. Not only is it important for our future food supply chain, it's also important for the environment because all of those actors are destroying it. And more people need to talk about this.
So, who really owns American farming? Corporations? Billionaires? Foreign investors? Or maybe us, if we start caring again. The truth is, what's happening to our farmland is a reflection of what's happening to America itself. Consolidation, convenience, and control. But the seeds of change are still in our hands. If you learned something new today, drop a like and share this video. And tell me in the comments, should foreign companies and billionaires be allowed to buy U.S. farmland? Or should we protect it like a national resource? Subscribe if you want more deep dives into the changing face of American life. As always, feel free to suggest topics related to American culture that you'd like to see us cover next.